Hello there. In this lesson, in this video, we're going to show you how you can make your own personalized ring and add a pattern to it. In this case, we're going to show you how you can add a Celtic knot 4-ring pattern to your simple ring. So if you start Fluid Designer up, first of all you need to go to the rings folder. It's actually there by default at the moment, but that's where you can select it if it's not there. And if we select the object all UK ring sizes and just drag and drop that onto the workspace. Now I'm not actually going to change the inner diameter of this ring. I'm going to stick to the default ring size here. You can change it to a different size. You've probably done that in another lesson. So I'm just going to stick to the default ring size there. And what we're going to do is we're going to add a pattern to this ring. And where are the patterns? Well, if I just click Loop Library there, just to refresh the panel, I'm going to use a parametric pattern. And the one that I'm going to use is a Celtic knot. So I'll just show you where it is. So it's it's one of these patterns here. So yeah, it's this 4-ring Celtic knot pattern. And it comes under parametric patterns. If I just drag and drop this object onto the workspace, obviously my ring will disappear, so I need to append this subject. So I want patterns parametric Celtic knot pattern 4-leaf. So if we go to File and Append, and just go to the Groups folder, so this is the main folder with all the patterns and objects that are available in Fluid Designer. I want patterns parametric, and as you can see there are lots and lots of patterns available to us here. I want the Celtic knot pattern 4-leaf, and as usual we need to open the object. And so it's the Celtic knot pattern 4-leaf object that I want to append from the library. Now when the red highlight is there, that doesn't indicate that the object's properly selected, so either click on it here or click on it in the workspace to confirm the highlighting of it, so you can see the yellow line around now. Now as you can see, that pattern is much too big to put on my ring, so the first thing I want to do is to scale it down. And we can scale in Fluid Designer. I'll just switch on the screencast keys. We can scale in Fluid Designer by pressing the S key on the keyboard, and I could use the mouse, or I'm actually going to type in 0.5 and then enter to scale it half size. Now whenever you scale in Fluid Designer, you always must do Control A and apply the scale. So there's my basic pattern, and I now want to put that onto this ring. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees about the x-axis, and we can do that. We can either do it here by changing this value to 90, or I could have done R for rotate, X for the x-axis, and 90 for 90 degrees. Now if I just look at this object from the front, you can see that my pattern is still a little bit big for this ring. So if I just click on the ring now, you can see that the Z dimension is 5mm, so I could change the dimensions of my ring. So if I up it to 8mm ring, yeah, that's okay. That will cover the pattern, so when we put the pattern on the ring, it won't be overlapping on the side. Okay, so I can change my ring size. I don't need to have it 1mm thick. I could have changed that as well, but that's alright. So now we want to put the pattern on the ring, and we do that in Fluid Designer by using a modifier. So in the Properties window here, we click on the Modifiers icon, and we want to basically attach our Celtic knot 4-leaf pattern to the curve that our default ring is on. So if we do Add Modifier and Curve Modifier, the object that we want to curve the ring around is the default ring size. Remember, we haven't changed the ring size in this particular video to one of the UK sizes here. We've kept it with the default ring size, H+. Now you can see when I apply that, you can see that my object, my Celtic knot, is on the inside of the ring. Well, that's clearly not very good, but we can solve that by just going to View and Top View, and if we go into Edit mode, we can see what the issue is. The object is centered with the x-axis, the red line is the x-axis, and it's on the inside. So if I just move it up 1 unit, 1 millimeter, because the snap is on at the moment, so it just moves up 1 millimeter, and then I've just pressed Tab key again, we can see where it fits. Well, actually that's okay now. It is now on the outside of the ring. It probably is a good idea if we just go to View and Top, if I just zoom in and measure this with my interactive ruler, we can see what dimension that is. Well, that's about 0.5, 0.6 sticking out. We shouldn't have anything less than about 0.5 of a millimeter here, because we won't get the detail, particularly this inside detail, if we've only got a dimension of about 0.2 or 0.3 or 0.4 millimeters here. So try and stick to something like 0.5 millimeters minimum there. Now we could have more sticking out if we want. Alright, so if I press the Tab key to go into Edit mode, so if I move it up again and then press the Tab key, now notice it goes way out here because I've jumped up another 1 millimeter there. So if we move it back down there, we're moving in, let's see, we're moving in this axis here, -1, so we could click here. That's taking it the wrong way. We could click here and just move it slowly. Okay, so that's -1.3 value there, and if I press the Tab key, you can see we've got more of the object sticking out there. So you can vary this by changing the, in this case, the Z value there. Now I know the green is not the Z axis. The reason that doesn't match up properly, you know, normally Z is blue. The reason it doesn't match up is because we rotated this about the x-axis 90 degrees. So these X, Y and Z values are not the original ones. So you do need to look at the number here that changes as you move the object. So in other words, if I do that, you can see that the Z value is the value that's moving. Okay, there we've got our Celtic knot on the outside of the ring. Now what we could also do is we could have several copies of this. Well, in order to get several copies of it, we need to use an array modifier. Now if I apply an array modifier here, you can see things are going pretty weird. That's because of the curve modifier. If we're going to use an array modifier, we must do that first. We must apply an array modifier first before we apply a curve. So if I just delete the array modifier, and if I just delete the curve modifier now, and if I do an array modifier, you can see there I can get 2 or 3 count of my object. Okay, and then if we apply the curve modifier again, and so remember what we did is we did it with the default ring size, so I need to set the object as the default ring size. You can see now we've got the object on the outside of the ring looking a lot better, and we could change the relative offset here and change the pattern until we're happy with it. You can spread it out. Okay, you can have 4 or 5, whichever you want, so you've got to decide how many you want. Wouldn't probably want 4 or 5 in this instance. Okay, so we've got 3 patterns there, and we've got the ring. Now we could do something else to this. If I actually select the ring itself, if I just view it from the top, if I go into edit mode here, and if I just highlight this one control point, all control points were initially highlighted, if I just highlight the one control point, if I change this radius, and I'm going to enter in a value of 2 here, notice the effect that it has. It doesn't just change the ring, it's also having an effect on the pattern, which is quite interesting. Okay, so you can change the pattern and the ring at the same time just by changing the ring here. But if we look carefully, you can see that the pattern is actually a little bit offset. And the reason for that is that the pattern wasn't centered at that particular control point. So we do need to fix that. Okay, so if we come out of edit mode from the ring, yeah, if I just view it from the top, you'll see what the issue is. That is effectively the center line of my pattern. And that's not in the same position as the x-axis. So I need to somehow rotate this back around. So if I select the pattern and go into edit mode, essentially what I want to do is I want to move the pattern to the right or the left. Now I'm not always sure which way I need to go here. So let's just try this and see what happens. Okay, so I'll just move it to the right a little bit there by changing the x value. And you see I've actually moved the pattern that way around the circle, which is the wrong direction for what I want. So if we go in the opposite direction here, let's take it back to the 0, which is where it was, and we'll move 1 millimeter in the opposite direction and then press Tab key to come out. Now you can see I've gone a little bit too far here. My center line is now below the x-axis. It was above it before, so I just need to switch it, go back to the right again, and I'll just go back one more. Okay, and as you can see that line now, that center line of the pattern is in line with the x-axis now, and so you can see that when I look at my pattern here, it's now nice and even on both sides. Okay, so you can adjust the pattern in edit mode to center it about that point now. Now if you want to print this, what we've got to do is we've got to convert these objects to meshes first of all, and so with the pattern highlighted I would go to Tools, Object Tools and convert it to a mesh. I would go Tools, Object Tools and convert the ring itself to a mesh, and then we need to join the two objects together. So if we select the pattern first, hold down the Shift key and select the ring and go to Tools, Object Tools and join the two objects together. We're now in a position that we can save this in order to print it. But remember, in Fluid Designer, don't go to File and Save. Always go to File and Export. So we're going to export it as a wavefront object, export it to the desktop. So it's a ring with a Celtic knot 4 ring pattern, and we could say that, well, I'm not going to bother with the size. Okay, so it's a ring with a Celtic knot 4 ring pattern, and so we can export that object to the desktop, and we then just need to run that through Netfabb Basic, correct any errors in it, but essentially that is a ring with a pattern on it. Now the thing about Fluid Designer is there are thousands and thousands of patterns that you can use, and all of these patterns can be applied to rings or bracelets in the similar fashion to what we've just shown you there. So flower patterns, for example, astrological patterns, all of these patterns can be applied to rings, etc., etc. Okay, and thank you. That's it for this video.